He replaced me with a younger version of me. Same eyes, same smile, same soft laugh I once had before life turned sharp. My billionaire husband thinks youth is power, but he forgot one thing. I taught him everything he knows, including how to lose. I'm Ivana Hayes, 40 years old, perfectly polished and clinically underestimated. For 2 decades, I stood beside the man who built an empire off my ideas, while he took the credit, the power, and finally, a 22-year-old copy of who I used to be. He thinks that makes me irrelevant, disposable, finished. But what he doesn't know is I'm not the woman he married anymore. I'm the woman who's going to destroy him. If I look back at the woman I used to be, I barely recognize her anymore. She was bright-eyed, trusting, eager to build a life beside a man she loved and believed in. That woman built everything with him, hand in hand, until the moment she realized that everything she thought was hers, her ideas, her power, her influence, could be taken away in a heartbeat. He's Richard Hayes, my husband, billionaire, mogul, king of boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations. He always had a mind for wealth and power, but he was never entirely his own man. He needed me, my strategy, my insight, my instincts, to transform his raw ambition into the empire he now parades around like a trophy. And now he replaced me, not with someone better, not with someone smarter. He replaced me with a 22-year-old who looks exactly like I did at that age. Same sharp cheekbones, same hazel eyes, same smile that could disarm anyone in the room. She's not unique. She's a reflection, a mirror of my youth. My husband wants the illusion of what I used to be, and he thinks that's enough to erase me. The first time I saw her, I didn't feel shock or jealousy. I felt amusement and anger, the kind of cold, calculating anger that doesn't burn in flashes but simmers quietly, shaping every thought. He strutted her into the living room, holding her hand as if showing off a new car. "She's perfect," he said, looking at me like I was yesterday's news. I smiled politely. "Congratulations," I said. My voice was soft, controlled, everything he wasn't expecting. Inside, I was already planning, already observing. Every gesture she made, every glance, every slight hesitation, I cataloged it. Because here's the truth: she is young, yes, but inexperienced. She doesn't understand the subtle games of influence that dominate our world. She thinks charm is power. She doesn't know that power is strategy. And I know every trick he's ever learned, every weakness, every blind spot. The empire he shows the world, the sparkling offices and lavish parties, is fragile, and it was built on my foundation. He didn't create it alone, he never could. I taught him to manipulate markets, to read rivals, to control people without them realizing it. I made him formidable. And now he thinks that by replacing me with a younger copy, he can erase the past, erase my presence, and somehow start fresh. But he underestimated the one thing he can't buy, the one thing he never respected: my patience. I spend days observing her. I watch how she fumbles through board meetings, how she nods politely to executives without understanding the nuances of what they're saying. She's charming, yes, but shallow, a veneer of confidence covering deep ignorance. Every misstep she makes is a breadcrumb for me, a map of weakness that I can exploit. At first, I play the role of the gracious former wife. Polite smiles, soft warnings disguised as friendly advice, subtle corrections in private meetings. Everyone sees me as the gracious, mature woman who has stepped aside gracefully. But behind the polite veneer, I'm setting my pieces in place. Each conversation, each glance, each subtle correction is a strategic move. He flaunts her at every gala, at every business event, as if parading a trophy to the world. But the more he shows her off, the more I realize how fragile his empire really is. Because charm and youth do not replace experience. They do not replace intelligence. They do not replace me. And here's the irony: by underestimating me, he has already begun to hand me the tools I need. He assumes I am irrelevant, a shadow of the woman I once was. But shadows can be silent hunters. They wait, they watch, and when the time comes, they strike with precision. I begin documenting everything, every flaw she exposes in the company, every weak decision he makes while distracted by his obsession with youth, every secret he assumes I've forgotten. I compile evidence mentally and physically. I map out the empire he has so carelessly built on illusions and borrowed brilliance. And with every passing day, I become more than the woman he replaced. I become the storm he cannot foresee. This is just the beginning. He may be blind to the danger in his living room, but I am not. The young replica of me is temporary, but my strategy is permanent. I am the architect of the empire, and now I am also the harbinger of its reckoning. He thinks youth is power. He is wrong. Experience, intelligence, and patience, those are power. And I have them all. By the time he realizes it, it will be too late. The empire he thinks he controls will crumble, and the woman he dismissed will be the one holding the final verdict. If he thought replacing me with a younger version would make me disappear, he made the first mistake. The second, far bigger mistake is believing that he built anything without me. Everything Richard Hayes touches looks like gold to the world. Billion-dollar deals, flashy headlines, charitable donations that paint him as visionary. But the truth is that the empire he flaunts is my design, my blueprint, my architecture. He may be the face, but I am the skeleton holding it all together. For 20 years, I was everywhere he needed, but nowhere he noticed. I wrote the proposals that sealed international contracts. I negotiated the mergers that doubled our market share. I advised him on investment strategies, risk calculations, personnel placements, everything. Every deal, every connection, every strategic move he ever took, I was the mind behind it, the invisible architect. And now, as he flaunts a clone of me, he is blind to the truth that the foundation of his empire is mine, and it is fragile without me. Every morning, I walk through our offices like a ghost. People smile politely, some with lingering admiration, some with subtle relief that I stepped aside. They do not know that I still hold the keys. I know which executives are loyal to him because of fear and which are loyal to me because of respect. I know which contracts are vulnerable, which partnerships are unstable, and which investors are waiting for a reason to pull out. The entire structure of his empire is a house of cards, and I know exactly which one to remove first. I start small, subtle. A suggestion here, a friendly correction there. I point out minor errors in projections, flag small oversights in meetings, nudge contracts in directions that seem logical but will slowly fracture the system. No one notices because I am careful, calculated, strategic. My fingerprints are invisible, but my influence spreads like a shadow over the empire. Richard does not suspect. He is distracted by her, by the young replica who smiles nervously beside him during board meetings. He does not see how the company begins to shift under my subtle manipulations. Numbers that once seemed stable start showing cracks. Executives who once followed him unquestioningly start second-guessing decisions. Investors murmur quietly in the background, sensing uncertainty. And he pats himself on the back for finding love in youth, oblivious to the crumbling empire in his hands. What he does not realize is that I still control the flow of information. Emails, reports, internal audits, I know what everyone sees before they see it. I can reroute, manipulate, delay, or accelerate information to my advantage. I can make problems look minor until they explode at the perfect moment. I am everywhere and I am nowhere, a ghost in the machinery of power, building the stage for the ultimate reckoning. And it is not just business. He believes his charm and wealth protect him personally. He underestimates the quiet power of someone who knows every habit, every weakness, every desire. I know which friends are only loyal for favors. I know which enemies are waiting for an opportunity. I know every personal flaw he hides behind confidence and control. He has always depended on my discretion, my judgment, my intuition, and now that dependence will be his undoing. I begin mapping scenarios, worst case, best case, and everything in between. I calculate which executives can be swayed, which contracts can be subtly sabotaged, and which secrets, if revealed, will unravel the carefully curated image he presents to the world. Every small victory I orchestrate is invisible but irreversible. By the time anyone notices, it will be too late. Every night when I leave the office, I review the empire in my mind. Each division, each department, each partnership, a puzzle I can manipulate at will. He may think he owns it, he may think it is untouchable, but I built it from the ground up. He relies on instinct and bravado. I rely on calculation and precision. And in the quiet hours of planning, I realize something powerful. He cannot defeat me because he never understood the rules of the game I play. The invisible architect, that is what I have become. No one sees me moving pieces, no one knows which domino will fall next, but Richard Hayes will, eventually, and when he does, it will not be an accident or a stroke of luck that destroys him. It will be me, the woman he dismissed, the woman he thought was finished. I am patience incarnate. I am strategy in motion. I am the quiet storm building beneath the surface of his flashy, brittle world, and the moment the first domino falls, there will be no stopping the cascade. The empire he parades will collapse, and the world will see him not as a mogul, not as a genius, but as a man who is outplayed by the woman he replaced. Richard thinks he is untouchable. He thinks his empire, his wealth, his reputation are indestructible. But all empires have cracks, and every crack has a starting point. I've been patient, I've been invisible, I've waited while he paraded youth like it could shield him from consequence. And now the time has come to begin the fracture. It starts with small things, a slightly delayed report here, a subtle miscalculation there. Nothing anyone could point to as deliberate sabotage, just small tremors that suggest instability. Executives begin to second-guess decisions. Investors begin to whisper questions that go unanswered. Richard's once commanding presence in meetings starts to feel off. People notice the tension he can't see. I watch from the sidelines and I smile. This is where my influence shines. I orchestrate every movement like a conductor with a symphony. Each player, each department, each subsidiary, they all move under my silent direction. And the cracks begin to spread. It's not just about money, it's about perception. Power is fragile and it depends entirely on how others see you. I subtly manipulate situations to make Richard appear overconfident, impulsive, even reckless. I guide board members into decisions that seem logical but will eventually weaken his position. Contracts that seemed secure now have tiny loopholes. Partnerships that appeared strong now wobble under the weight of small, calculated disruptions. And the more he flaunts his young bride, the more distracted he becomes. He doesn't notice my moves because he believes his charm and wealth protect him from harm. He is blind to the truth that someone who understands the architecture of an empire can bend it silently, invisibly, without leaving fingerprints. I start planting seeds of doubt among his closest allies. The people he trusts most, executives, advisors, board members, I subtly show them opportunities that seem beneficial but are ultimately at odds with his empire's stability. By the time they realize they've been manipulated, it's too late. Trust is eroded, loyalty is fractured, and Richard is none the wiser, still dazzled by youth, still convinced he is in control. It's delicious to watch this slow unraveling. The first cracks are barely noticeable to anyone else, but I see them clearly. A missed opportunity here, a hesitation there, an executive questioning his judgment publicly in a meeting he thought was secure. These are the tremors that precede collapse. And I am the force behind them, but I don't stop there. I push further, targeting the areas of his empire he values most, the parts he believes define his legacy. I uncover weaknesses in high-profile contracts, misalignments in major partnerships, and vulnerabilities in his investments that could create public scandal if mishandled. I do not act recklessly, I move with precision. Every mistake he is about to make is guided by my hand, every failure engineered to appear accidental or the result of overconfidence. Richard's reputation begins to show cracks. Social circles that once sought his attention now quietly distance themselves. Competitors, sensing opportunity, start encroaching, and through it all I remain calm, composed, untouchable. No one suspects the woman he replaced is the very force dismantling his empire from within, and then the small victories compound. A board vote that should have gone smoothly ends in disagreement. An investor meeting that should have strengthened support instead introduces doubt. Media rumors, carefully nudged into circulation, begin to suggest instability where none existed before. It's subtle, invisible, yet catastrophic in the long run. Richard starts to notice tension, but he still doesn't understand why. His young bride, the replica of me, offers no insight. She is inexperienced, naive, and unprepared to navigate the complexities of the empire she has stepped into. She fumbles, she stumbles, she exposes his overconfidence at every turn, and I, the woman he dismissed, watch the cracks widen with cold satisfaction. I am meticulous. I document every move, every failure, every exposed flaw. These are not just weaknesses, they are weapons for later use. When the time comes, I will not only have dismantled his empire quietly, I will have built a case for his public downfall, a reckoning that will leave him powerless, humiliated, and forgotten. And here is the truth he cannot comprehend. He built his empire on youth, charm, and ambition. I built it on knowledge, strategy, and patience. The cracks in his legacy are not accidents. They are proof that he relied on the wrong kind of power. He thought he could replace me with a pretty face and continue ruling without consequence. He was wrong. By the time he realizes what has happened, the damage will be irreversible. Friends and allies will turn into critics. Investors will withdraw quietly. His public image will fracture. And all the while, I remain the invisible hand, guiding every fall, orchestrating every failure, ensuring that every domino falls exactly where it should. The legacy crack begins quietly, imperceptibly. But I know every tremor, I control every movement, and Richard Hayes will learn too late that the woman he replaced is the one who holds the power to erase everything he spent his life building. Every powerful man has secrets. Richard Hayes has enough to burn the world he stands on. I know because I helped him bury them. The younger version of me, the 22-year-old trophy he calls a wife, she doesn't even know where to begin looking. She thinks being on his arm gives her access. She doesn't realize true power comes from knowing what a man hides when the spotlight is gone. Richard always believed money could erase the past, that signatures and silence had the same value, but secrets are living things and they always wait for the right moment to return. And I am that moment. I start with the finances, not the visible ledgers. Those are pristine, polished, perfect for board presentations. No, I go for the shadow accounts, the offshore vaults. The money he funneled into places he thought no one would ever trace. But I was always with him, every late-night call, every coded transaction, every temporary fix to his greed. He believed I supported him out of loyalty. No, Richard, I was memorizing every detail. I opened the files he thought locked behind lawyers and threats. Numbers don't lie. They simply wait. Millions redirected into shell companies owned by men who don't exist. Funds donated to charities that were nothing more than fronts. silent payoffs to bury scandals that would have ended him years ago. And then there are the deaths, the ones that were labeled accidents, unfortunate timing, coincidences, but I know the patterns of fear and desperation. I know the edges of a story that's been neatly cut down to fit a headline. One man in particular, Andrew Reddick, a former partner who threatened to expose Richard's manipulation in the early years. He fell from a balcony 12 years ago. Richard sent flowers and condolences. I signed the check that kept Andrew's family quiet. I still remember the look in Richard's eyes when the news broke. Relief, not grief. That was the night I stopped being naive. I moved next to the documents hidden in our private estate vault, a vault only two people in the world can access, Richard and me. He thought giving me access meant trust. Really, it gave me a loaded weapon. I catalog every file. Every forged signature, every bribed official, every illegal agreement disguised as essential negotiations. He used the law as a mask while he tore through it behind closed doors. Then I reached the folder I've always avoided, the one labeled EH, my initials, inside photographs, not of me, of the girl before me, the one who looked like me, another replica, another version of perfection he acquired, used, and erased. She disappeared at 19, vanished the year before I met him. My breath doesn't shake, my resolve only sharpens, because now I understand the truth. I wasn't the first, and she won't be the last unless I stop him. He comes home late one evening, lipstick smeared clumsily on his collar. He smells like luxury and a lie. He doesn't notice me studying him. He doesn't realize he is already being measured for his destruction. He pours us champagne, some twisted gesture of civility. I let the glass touch my lips but never drink. What's wrong? He asks, pretending to care. I smile, slow, knowing, dangerous. Nothing, I say, but you should get some sleep. You look tired. He doesn't know that the walls around him are closing in. He doesn't hear the cracks echo. He doesn't feel the earth shifting beneath his empire. He still believes he's the one in power. It's almost pathetic. I place copies of the darkest files into safe hands, lawyers who don't fear consequences, allies who owe me favors, journalists hungry for truth but patient enough to wait for my signal. One move too early ruins everything. One move too late lets him breathe. Timing is the blade, and I am holding it steady. The last secret I uncover is the most damning of all. Richard Hayes is planning a merger that would grant him unprecedented control over private surveillance data, access to people's identities, finances, movements, secrets, everything. Global power, unchecked, unregulated, devastating. And he is using stolen technology to make it happen, technology I designed. He replaced me with a child who can stand beside him at parties. But he cannot move forward without the intellect he discarded. His empire needs me, his future needs me, his survival needs me, and that is exactly how I will destroy him. He buried his secrets with money, but I am digging them up and turning them into weapons. By the time the world learns who he truly is, there will be no rebuilding, no redemption, no empire left standing. His wealth made him believe he could rewrite the truth, but I am the author of his ending. And I have only just begun. I've learned something important. Destruction is not loud. It is silent, precise, inevitable. A quiet keystroke, a signed document, a whispered truth in the right ear. That is how empires fall. Richard's empire is now a tower with rotten beams. I have been tearing them out one by one, and he has not even noticed the collapse beneath his feet. Yet tonight he will, because tonight the final play begins. He wakes up confident, a fool wearing the costume of a king. He stands before the mirror in his penthouse suite, admiring himself like every wrinkle is a personal insult time has dared to give him. His young doll wife, the replica he swapped me for, is still asleep, wrapped in silk sheets she doesn't understand the cost of. Richard practices his boardroom expression, the one meant to command respect and obedience. He sees power in his reflection. I see desperation. He has no idea what waits for him when he arrives at headquarters. He has no clue what I've already set in motion. He thinks today is the day he becomes unstoppable. Today is the merger, the global control he's been chasing. Yes, today is that day, but not for him, for me. When I arrive at Hayes Global, staff instinctively straighten themselves as if sensing the shift in gravity. They don't greet me as the ex-wife anymore. They greet me like a storm, like something inevitable, like the real owner has finally returned home. And why shouldn't they? For years, I was the strategist behind every triumph. I led them to victory while Richard accepted applause. They trusted him only because I stood beside him. Now I stand alone, and they fall into place. I step into the boardroom early. Golden sunlight pours across the glass table, a spotlight waiting for the final performance. I take my seat, not at the edge like before. I take his seat, the head of the table, the throne he never earned. Executives enter slowly, hesitantly, exchanging glances. Some already know, some only suspect. All feel it, the power has shifted. Richard storms in 10 minutes late, confidence evaporating the moment he sees me where he believes he belongs. What do you think you're doing? He spits. I don't rise. I don't flinch. I simply look at him with calm ownership. He sees the papers laid out in front of each board member, documents that legally alter the future of Hayes Global. He sees the shareholder authorization signatures, the ones I secured quietly while he was busy chasing youth. He sees the confidence in the eyes of the board, no longer his audience, no longer his army. That is when he finally looks scared. Ivana, he forces a laugh that sounds more like a choke. You don't belong in this room anymore. I steeple my fingers. Yes, I reply, I do. He starts a speech, but no one listens. Words from a man who has already lost hold no value. His voice cracks as he pushes for dominance that no longer exists. So I crush him with the truth. Everything you think you own is mine. The patents mine, the surveillance tech mine, the architecture of this empire all mine. He tries to interrupt, but I raise a hand, and the room obeys me, not him. I slide a folder across the table, the one containing his buried past, illegal accounts, payoffs, a death he helped arrange, evidence printed on paper like a confession. He flips through the pages, color draining from his face. He looks up at me, voice barely a whisper. You wouldn't. Oh, Richard, I already have. Security enters, not the ones loyal to him, the ones I appointed last week. They stand behind him, silent, ready. He looks to the replica wife for comfort, but she has been ushered from the room. She is worthless to him now. His hand shakes as he presses it to his chest, his heart reacting to fear it's never had to feel. He stumbles back, knocking into a chair. That's when the board votes. Unanimous, immediate, permanent. Richard Hayes is removed from his own company. He doesn't speak, he gasps. He doesn't fight, he collapses. With one signature, the empire he believed immortal becomes mine. They escort him away, a broken man with nothing left. The elevator doors close, sealing his legacy inside a chamber of failure. I walk to the window, 40 stories above a world he once ruled. The city looks different now, brighter, clearer, freer. Someone approaches quietly, the chief legal officer. Where would you like to begin, Mrs. Hayes? Mrs. Hayes, not ex-wife, not forgotten woman, not replaced or irrelevant. I am the name that remains. I take a breath, the first true breath in years. We start with rebuilding, I say, and we cleanse the company of every dirty thread he wove into it. Later, when the sun dips behind skyscrapers, I visit him. He's packing the last of his ego into a suitcase at our former estate. The young bride is gone. She left the moment she understood what a sinking ship feels like beneath trembling feet. Richard hears my heels before he dares to look. His voice is smaller now. Why did you do it? I let him see the truth he ignored for years. You didn't just betray our marriage, Richard. You betrayed me. You thought I was finished. You thought youth made you immortal. You forgot the one rule of power: never underestimate the woman who built it. He steps forward, anger flaring. You think this is the end? I can rebuild. No, I interrupt softly. You can't. I reveal the final document, a legal decree freezing his accounts, his assets, his influence, a mirror of poverty reflected in a man who once drowned in excess. His empire is gone, his legacy erased. His name will be a warning: don't destroy the woman who made you. He collapses into the nearest chair, head in his hands. A king dethroned, a ghost in a palace he no longer owns. I do not feel sympathy. Sympathy is a luxury of the powerless. I walk toward the exit, heels striking like gunshots on marble. He calls out one final question. What will you do now? I stop at the door just long enough to let him hear the truth. I will build something unstoppable, without you and above you. Outside, the night air tastes like victory. My driver opens the car door with a reverence Richard never offered. The city lights flicker below, bowing in their reflection as I pass. I take out my phone, a single message scheduled to be delivered globally at midnight. A press announcement: new CEO of Hayes Global, Ivana Hayes, a future designed by the woman behind every success. A new era without corruption, without him. The news will ignite the world, and Richard will watch it happen from a place he never imagined: irrelevance. Power is not noise, power is silence, the silence after a scream, the silence when a throne sits empty, the silence a fallen king leaves behind. He replaced me with a younger version of myself. He believed youth wins. What he failed to understand is that youth is temporary, experience is forever, intelligence is forever, revenge is forever, and I, Ivana Hayes, am forever.